Good Monday morning, guys. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope everybody got plenty of rest, had as much fun as you possibly could have had, and ate all the wonderful food that you came across. Um, Unfortunately, it's like I said Friday, things seem to just come down like a waterfall over the weekend. So, what I want to focus on today is, you know, getting good education and good advocacy to everyone in our country because we have a problem. Let's just, start with this past weekend's events. Over the weekend, 9-year-old girl, Melina Fratolin from Canada, came to the United States on vacation with her father, Luciano Fratolin. Uh, Melina's parents had been divorced since 2019 or estranged from each other. I'm not sure if they were married or what the deal was, but they've been estranged since 2019. Um, and I believe it was Sunday night. I'm sorry, Saturday night or Saturday evening. Melina called her mother and told her that they were on the way back to Canada, and her mother stated that she sounded fine and in good health and good spirits. Sometime between that phone call to her mother and a later placed 911 call from her father stating that Melina had been abducted by someone in a white van, her father took her life. Luciano Fratolin has been charged with second-degree murder and concealment of a corpse of his 9-year-old daughter. Basically, he called 911, alerted authorities that his daughter had been abducted by someone in a white van. Authorities immediately responded. They ended up issuing an Amber Alert as they, felt that she was in immediate danger. But pretty quickly, some inconsistencies started to rise up in her father's, um, in his, oh, sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Some inconsistencies started to rise up in the investigation while the authorities were talking to her father. It was pretty soon realized that, he had something to do with her disappearance. And unfortunately, her body was found in a shallow pond in the area of which she was supposedly abducted from in the white van. But as I said, her father's been charged with taking her life, second degree, and the concealment of a human corpse. I reported on my channel, I believe it was just last week, in my area, we had an Amber Alert issued um, for a 3-year-old child who was in the company of his own father. Um, and then that arose from a welfare check being called to the family home because no one had heard from anyone in the family since July the 7th. Upon gaining entry to the home, authorities found the deceased bodies of uh, this 3-year-old's mother and the wife of the suspect. The suspect was Aaron Dante Williams, his wife Taisha Williams, and his 13-year-old stepdaughter. 13-year-old stepdaughter, Zanaya Wright, were both found deceased inside the home. Thankfully, little Jabril was found unharmed when his father was stopped on the Alabama-Tennessee border. That's in a week's time, just on my little radar that I have. I'm not a big channel. Um, that's not my purpose. My purpose is to bring awareness, bring education, bring advocacy. And this is becoming a problem. A couple of months ago, we had Travis Decker took the lives of his three beautiful young girls. One thing that is continuing to be a rising similarity is issues with the relationships of the parents, um, custody issues, just communication issues, all that kind of thing. And for some reason, these parents they are choosing as the ultimate payback to take the life of their own children. And that is just, I can't wrap my head around it for anything in the world. This has been something that has been a horrible problem that is just continuing to grow and grow and grow. Think back to the Harts, um, the Hart family. Um, you know, their mother, and their other mother, it was a same-sex couple, um, drove their van off of a cliff. Now, I don't think that there were issues in the parents' relationship, but there were issues with CPS and things of that nature, and there had been some abuse going on. Look at Ruby Frankie. If one of her children had not escaped the way that they did, they would have died. And goodness knows, let's look at Lori Daybell. Took her children's lives for what? For sex, for power, and the almighty dollar. Because it's pretty clear. She was collecting those Social Security checks that those kids were getting from, well, one of them from the father that Lori herself took the life of. And that's not alleged anymore. She was charged, she was tried, and she was found guilty by a jury of her peers. And her own niece's husband, 4 kids. She tried to take his life. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. He turned the wheel of his vehicle and went around that Jeep when he did. The bullet missed his head by maybe 2, 3 inches. That would have been another 4 kids who had lost a parent. I mean, what is going on here? Let's keep going backwards. Let's, a case that my group has been working on for 3 years now, solid. This is a case that we work on every day. The Watts case. Um, Guess what? I mean, yes, you had a monster who took the life of his family and did heinous things afterwards. However, truth be known, that family had been a family in crisis for a very long time. But no one spoke up. There were things going on in that family that had somebody just had the nerve to speak up. Now, I understand it, and I understand the reasons why they didn't. Because if anybody did speak up about anything, they were, you know, banned from the family. Okay, so what? If speaking up means that you possibly save the life of a child, but it might lose you your friendship, by all means, speak up for that. Speak up. Who cares? You can make new friends, and if that's the problem. Um, there has got to be, we've got to start working on more education to get out to the public on how to spot families in crisis, and not just families in crisis monetarily, you know, not just families in crisis because you might see that one of the parents has an addiction problem or something like that. I'm not talking about that. There are deeper things, but the signs are there. You can have, just like, okay, let's take the Watts. You can have a family that on paper looks like the perfect family. You know, kids dressed absolutely just cute as pie, always clean. Um, you never saw any, because goodness knows there were plenty of videos on Facebook about the family, but that was the problem. People looked at that family on Facebook and said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with that family." But there were people that were involved with the family behind the scenes that saw other things going on. That has, if somebody had stepped up and said, "Hey, what about this and what about that?" Might it have cost them a friendship? Probably. But could it have possibly saved those little girls' lives? Good possibility of that. And I'll take that over losing a friendship any day. But we are continuing to lose children to their parents. And that's the big thing. There are signs. I mean, I'm sorry, like the situation that was had in Alabama. I mean, no one can tell me that there weren't signs that something was wrong in that family before that man took the lives of his wife, his 13-year-old baby girl stepdaughter, and then took off with his 3-year-old baby son. There were signs. I guarantee you there were. The Frankie situation, we all know that. Lori Daybell, yep. The Harts, overwhelmingly. But the problem is, and take the Hart situation right there, even the day that her son, was able to get away and come to the neighbor's door, that neighbor in the beginning did not want to open the door to the child, but finally realized, after a few minutes, after this child is begging, "Please help me, please help us." Why is it that as an adult person, if a child comes to your door and rings the doorbell and says, "I need help," why in the world would you think, "Oh, I don't need to let that child in my house"? What in the world? But it goes back to the fact of, you know, with all the progress that we are making in mental health, there's still a stigma attached to it. For some reason, people still do not want to talk about it. And you gotta get it. That's the root of all of this. Okay? You make your brain make sure that, you sit there, your brain makes your decisions. Your brain tells your body it tells your hands what to do. When your brain's not healthy, sometimes those, ideas get skewed, and your brain tells your hands to do things that in a normal state of mind you would not do. But we've got to be willing to talk about it. Okay? Um, there's so much going on in the world today. We have issues with, just Okay. In relation to this, we also have to be able to trust those who are in higher positions to do what's right and to do their jobs correctly, to be sure that those who need protecting are protected, and to do the right thing in the capture and punishment of those who have done the wrong things, and make sure that they have the right people. I mean, you have all of these cases lately where just bungled up completely from the bottom to the top investigations, people having to go through the sufferings of trials that they were never meant to go through because because the investigation was bungled from the beginning, which keeps justice from happening at all. Thank goodness we do. Like I said before in one of my videos, I truly believe that the majority of people in the United States are intelligent enough to sit on a jury. Okay, guys, I'm sorry about that. We have a rescue kitty that when she came to us, she was pregnant and she had her baby several weeks ago. And we already, have two male cats that have both been neutered. But she, even though they've been neutered, she still recognizes them as male cats. And if you know anything about the feline, um, they male cats get kind of stupid when it comes to kittens. Um, they confuse kittens with rats and squirrels and chipmunks. And so female cats are automatically programmed in their brain to protect their young from male cats. And so we've recently, since her little babies have started walking around and making noises and stuff, our male cats have become very inquisitive about the kittens. But every once in a while, normally she trusts them, but every once in a while, I don't know if it's they get too close or they make some kind of movement that she doesn't like, but she goes full on attack mode and she wants to attack everything, including the dog. And my dog is a 120-pound boxer. So, and he's terrified of her. But anyhow, so now that I've got that taken care of, back to what we were talking about. I don't even know where I left off at, um, but just back to, today even, we have all of a sudden, Stephen Stearns wants to do a plea deal, and this was, for taking the life of the 13-year-old daughter of his girlfriend that he had been abusing, abusing, um, since she was 8 years old. And, like I said, there are signs. There are signs. And even, okay, where our teachers are concerned, our teachers go to school and they learn, they go to school to learn how to educate, and they are great at their jobs. But unfortunately, we have come into this problem of families becoming families in crisis and ending in, one of the parents taking the lives of the children. But like I said, I mean, there are signs that are just missed. And unfortunately, it's not until this tragedy happens that we look back, and that's what part of the group that I'm involved with does. We look, after these unfortunate tragedies happen, we go back to the beginning and we start looking at things that are going on with the family, behaviors that are present, incidents that happen that, you know, if you're possibly a friend, you might just look at that and say, oh, well, they're having a bad day or something like that. But if, that same incident happens over and over and over again, or, controlling behavior, a lot of things that, unfortunately, if you're not educated in the psychological realm of things, you just don't pick up on that, because everybody wants to think. There's not one person on the planet that wants to believe that they're friends or even related to someone that can take the lives of a child. No one wants to believe that. And I think that, yes, there sometimes are people that are born into this world that have problems from the get go. Somewhere, during the process of brain development, something is miswired, and from the beginning, they're just not gonna they're just not gonna do good things. They're lacking that brake pedal that the rest of us have. The rest of us have a brake pedal. We might get angry, we might get in an argument, but we have that brake pedal in our brains that says, okay, whoa, Nelly, hold up. That stops us from, you know, becoming so enraged that we harm someone. Um, some of us can manage that better than others. But anyway, I truly believe that in our country that we are smart enough to sit on a jury. The majority of us are. And if we're presented with good evidence from a good investigation, that we can, find these people guilty and put them in where they need to be, you know. Um, but we've got to start educating about the signs that need to be looked for so that we can prevent these crimes from happening at all. I mean, because this is just too many. Our children are having their lives taken by people that they trust with all their heart and that they love with all their heart. And that is just horrible. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm here for. So guys, my brain is a sponge for this stuff. I mean, it really is. Um, so we all, change doesn't happen when people keep their mouths closed. We all need to band together and start kind of, working towards getting, number one, in the United States of America, one of our largest problems is mental health. However, mental health is one of the hardest things to get treatment for, between insurance and people just having the stigma of mental illness. We've got to start working on that. We've got to start working on we've made great strides with education as far as domestic violence is concerned. We need to start, working on other areas of that so that we can identify these families that are in crisis so that we can hopefully prevent these things from happening. Nobody wants to see a couple go into a courtroom and one party have, the children taken away from the other party. No one wants to see that. How about we start, looking at what we can do to offer help and not put a stigma on that parent? We've got to start, we've got to change the direction of which we're going, or this is going to continue to happen. Parents get scared. They are terrified to go into family court because they know for a fact if they have any kind of mental illness, whether it's been diagnosed or not. If you have a mental illness, there's something wrong. I mean, you do. Parents are terrified because the thing is, you go to family court, they're going to take your kids away. They're never going to let you see your kids. And, sometimes that is required, but it's not required forever if we can open up the doors to mental health care. Not only mental health care, but self care. I mean, we need to be out here teaching people the things that they need to do for self care as well. Um, and I think that that's what this, boils down to a lot of the times is, um, you know, people, being scared. Oh, or if they've already gone to court and they've had their kids taken away and they want to get back at the other parent, you know why they want to get back at that other parent? It's because they haven't gotten any treatment for their problem to begin with. We've got to take the stigma away because it's not healthy. I mean, in a way, our court systems are bashing the whole co-parenting thing from the get-go. Because if because two parents can't get along, if they realize that and they decide to take those steps to separate, okay, then we need to have co-parenting happening. Okay, well, just because one parent may have an issue that they need to get a little bit treatment for doesn't mean that they're not capable of co-parenting once they get that treatment. But our courts are set up as such that, you know, like I said, parents, they become terrified. They want to get back at the other parent because they look at it as being the fault of the other parent. And it's not the fault of the other parent. It's the fault of our judicial system and the way things are set up and the way things are not set up. And I'm going to tell you right now, CPS, DHR, whatever you call it, wherever you are, that's one issue. And I can speak on that with 100% clarity because I've been a victim of it. My ex husband's new wife is not mentally well. I've been told by a mental health professional that that woman's biggest problem in life when she gets up in the morning is the fact that I breathe. Okay, well, she knows that there's nothing she can do to me because she's tried. Trust me. I have lost jobs because of her. I've had to stop going and being social with my friends because of her. If I went out to eat with a girlfriend, the next day that girlfriend's getting phone calls, being harassed. After we divorced, I tried to, move on and, with dating and things of that nature. I started, dating someone, got serious with them. I was able to keep it a secret for a while, but I live in a small town, so it's kind of hard to. They found out within 24 hours because as soon as he found out, he came to me because my ex-husband, he's not well either. He's got dependency issues. Um, Within 24 hours of them finding out who I was dating, he started getting phone calls, harassing text messages, and they will not stop. It doesn't stop. It never stops. So I no longer can socialize with my friends. Basically, if I love you and I have any kind of care for you and I care about your life, then I'm going to stay away from you because I know what comes with what, unfortunately, I basically am relegated to communicating with my friends on the phone and on Facebook or whatever. I don't even attempt to date because that was a relationship that person and myself, we were looking, at a good relationship. We got along really well. We truly cared about each other, and I don't want to do that to somebody else. I mean, I literally had to let go of him. I had to break up with him because even though he kept telling me, honey, don't worry about it. It's not bothering me. It's not bothering me. I could see that it was. And it went on and on and on. And the more it went on, I could see that he was changing. And I had to let go of him because of it. So please, like I said, guys, I'm a small channel, but, if this is something that is important to you, or that you like more information about, if you're having problems yourself, please, give this video a like, share it, subscribe to the channel. That's the best way you can support the information that I'm trying to help with. is supporting the channel. Subscribe, share the content, hit the notification button so that you know when I put out things. And every once in a while, I do like to, kind of back up and, hey, have a look at my pretty baby boxer dog. Or pretty soon, the kittens are getting old enough that I feel like they should be on YouTube too. So I'll be doing some videos of the little kitties. Don't put my kids on anything because that's a whole nother video, you know. But that is a video that's necessary and it's coming. So, but anyway, guys, yeah, just like I said, like, subscribe, share. Let's all work together so that we can save other families and save other children because it's worth it. It's worth it to me. I know what my family's had to go through. And if I could help anyone else from having to go through what we've had to go through, it's worth it. All right, guys, y'all have a good one. Have fun, be safe, and know above all else that you are loved. Love you guys. Bye.